Okay, we are live. I'm gonna give a couple people some time to hop on. Okay. So hello everyone and welcome to the live stream. I'm Meryl with Akron Soul Train, and today I am with resident artist, where is he? Jonah Jacobs, to learn about how he uses unconventional techniques and materials in his work. Now, to help with audio, Jonah will be unmasked and I will remain masked. So it should be easier to hear him, to understand him. But please let me know if you cannot understand him in the comments, and I'll tell him to speak up. Okay, but we are both vaccinated, so I will remain masked. Jonah will be showing at the Burton D. Morgan exhibition space in downtown Akron with fellow resident artist Maria Uhasi from January 5th through February 12th. So if you like what you see today, if what you see intrigues you, please make sure you make it to the gallery to see the finished pieces in person. Up next at Akron Soul Train, we have Aaron Foster and the show Reshaping the Narrative, both addressing issues of migration. Those shows will open on November 3rd. So we are closed for install this upcoming week, but our normal gallery hours will resume November 3rd from Wednesday to Saturday from 11 to 4 p.m. Akron Soul Train is an artist residency program connecting and empowering the community and artists by granting fellowships that provide resources for all creative disciplines to foster a more vibrant Akron. Before we get going, I'd like to thank our sponsors for their continued support: the GAR Foundation, Akron Community Foundation, the Ohio Arts Council, Leonard Family Foundation, the Brennan Family Foundation, the Knight Foundation, the Char and Chuck Fowler Family Foundation, and the Corbin Foundation. And anyone viewing, please feel free to comment below with questions and we will get to them. Also, please comment on any of our posted videos how you like our virtual programming so we can continue to put out the most thoughtful and creative content for you all. Okay, I'm going to switch my camera around. There we go. And Jonah, can you please introduce yourself and maybe give a little background on how you started working and your art practice?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jonah Jacobs. I use a lot of upcycled materials in my art. Mostly we got stuff like cardboard, and I just found this beauty today a couple minutes ago in the bathroom here at the Akron Soul Train. So these are kind of my two favorite materials to use. So I'm a self-taught artist. I basically started using materials like that because, let's face it, art can be really expensive at times, and I just kind of started looking around the house and seeing what materials I could find. And I just, over 10, 12 years now of experimenting, I found cardboard is what works best for me. As I go on, I'll show you some of the other weird little things that I use a lot of times. So I'm trying to work towards a more sustainable practice. So a lot of material I use, so if I make a styrofoam armature, then I use the waste from that to make other sculptural works. So I like to consider myself as kind of a material alchemist. I take weird things and turn them into beautiful organic works of art. So I don't have any finished pieces here today, and if you want, I'll share with you my website later. The only one I got is this little piece, and this is kind of what we'll be showing you how to make something like this. So then I take some pieces or a couple thousand of these together to make an organic sculptural piece. So we might as well, I'll get started.
Yeah.
So basically, like I said, I use a lot of cardboard. You just cut cardboard out whatever shape you want. Actually, we were just talking a little bit ago, I've switched from Elmer's glue to wheat paste glue. I'm always looking at cost, and I feel weight-based glue might be a little bit more sustainable too. There's no plastic bottles involved, you know, when you buy stuff. So you just put a bunch on there. This is real simple, obviously. Roll it up. The tighter you go, the less you'll have a hole in the end. Sometimes I like a hole in the end. Sometimes I don't. It really doesn't matter. So then you just obviously, you know, put a couple rubber bands on there. And then of course it's gonna have to take a day or two for the glue to set. So that's just pretty much step one. You got a nice little rolled piece of cardboard. The next part is, so this is basically after they set for a while, and then I'll actually burn them. I like to get those nice organic shapes. Like, I think this is kind of boring if it would just look like that. So as you can see, each piece is a lot different. And I like to let nature play a role in my work, so I only control the process a little bit. I like things to be kind of ad hoc and chaotic, so I never know what the outcome is going to be with each piece. So then after I have that, you know, I got this nice char on there and all kinds of interesting textures in there. Then I got my handy dandy nice sludge box here. This holds all my really nasty, you know, oatmeal and stuff. So then I buy mist tint paint, you know, seems to work well for what I do. And so the paint, you don't usually see it, so everybody asks at the end, how do I get my color? Well, the paint you're not going to see so much. So it actually acts more as a glue, because all my work is breaded. So this is actually what holds the breading on my pieces. Now, you will occasionally see the paint. You can see like on the end of this tube, and occasionally the paint, if this dries and cracks, the paint will kind of show through sometimes. So I generally will try to match the paint with the dye, but let's say if this was yellow and you wanted to use a blue dye, you could get some interesting colors, you know, contrasting colors on there if you wanted. But obviously I have to use this stuff quite liberally. Get a lot of paint on there. Try to make this as fast as I can. Goop it up. You can see how messy this gets. I got my hands already painted up all over. Get that all in there. Okay, so that's pretty good. All right, and then I got so this is oatmeal. I have to grind the oatmeal to make it almost into a flour. Flour's a little, like actual flour's a little tricky because it needs to be a little granular. I used to use salt in my work. So basically I do this because I need something to soak up the dyes, okay? So you need, salt worked well, but I learned that over time, especially the Epsom salt I was using, degrades, and but oatmeal seems to be doing the trick. It seems to last pretty well. So you get that, and you get some, you know, spots that don't hold. So I actually give it a squirt of water again, all over the place, and then I do a second, and sometimes even a third if it doesn't look like the breading is sticking on there. I feel a little bit like Martha Stewart right now.
I was gonna say this could be a cooking show.
Right, absolutely. So that's pretty close. I get some, you know, hand marks in there, which I don't like. Give it a little squirt there again. So it's getting pretty close. All right, so that's nice and breaded now. You can see you still get, you know, you lose some of the texture on there. You can see it's a little bit, you know, thicker on there, but that's okay. I'm not going to be able to get it all. So there's two different ways I can get color on here, and so most pieces I use both. So this is just dye water, and you can either just, so sometimes you just start, I just like to spray the base on there, on the bottom. Okay, but you can also just sprinkle dye on there, you know, any color you want. So let's see what we got here. Let's do this bright yellow up top here. And this is where it gets fun. You can do all kinds of different combinations. Of course, you gotta be mindful of how the dyes are gonna mix. So, you know, some dyes are just gonna, if you put them together on one piece, it's gonna just turn brown. So you gotta have to kind of stick to colors that are gonna blend well. So let's say this one, we'll do a little bright yellow on there. Let's do another darker yellow on top. Maybe I'll do another one with some wilder colors. Maybe do a little lime pop on the side. Sometimes I have no idea how it's going to turn out. Sometimes I don't like them. Sometimes I do. But it's really, just over years of trial and error. You kind of see what works, what doesn't. There is no going back though. So once you do it, that's it. It is what it is, and if I make any mistakes or I don't like it, then I'm kind of stuck with it. So sometimes to get textures, so I play around a lot with textures. I use a lot of plaster in my work. So sometimes when it's wet, you can sprinkle a little plaster on there. And you can play with different effects. Sometimes I blow it on there. It makes the color come out like a little bit brighter color. And then you just work around the piece, blending the colors, however you want. See, like how the green's not really going to come out so much there. It's going to turn almost like an olive drab. So that's just, how you learn what they do as you do this for a long time, So, yeah, you just keep doing that, playing with the colors. And then I'll do another piece here real shortly. I'm just going to give you the basics here. And I'll show you a couple other fun items I use for texture. I'm all about texture. I love texture. I'm always trying to find new ways to get texture out. See, you can kind of get how the colors blend a little bit there. And you got unlimited amount of choices. So, whatever you feel like colors you like, you can experiment. So then after this piece will have to dry for a couple of days. And then after that, I will use acrylic sprays or enamel sprays, and then I could put a coat of, I've been using polyacrylic recently. I've been playing around with maybe using shellac or beeswax. I haven't really experimented with those two so much yet. So, but that just gives you a basic idea of how I do that. But then sometimes you get these holes in there, and sometimes I leave them. Some have bigger holes, and I fill those with cotton swabs, like dyed and painted cotton swabs, or polyfill I get out of used pillows that I spray paint. So it gives it all these little textural qualities to it too. So let's do another one of those. I'll just put that there, I guess. Let's do this one, and then I'll show you a couple other things I use on here. So once again, goop it up with a lot of paint.
I love the idea of using paint instead of a glue, I guess, to bread, because it would work the same way.
Yeah, I thought about actually using, I know, for breading things, you actually use like egg washes. And I thought about doing it, and I never actually tried it. But the paint, like mist tint paint is like super cheap. And then, so sometimes the thicker the coat of oatmeal I use, sometimes when it dries, it crackles. And then you actually do see the paint underneath. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I like that effect. Other times it drives me crazy. But, I'm not 100% sure why some pieces, I guess maybe it's the drying process, why some crackle a lot and some don't. It's a technique I've been trying to figure out. I know there's this amazing artist, his name is Bosco Sodi, and he does similar. I don't know what he uses, it's not oatmeal, but his is all about crackling, and his works have this really deep, nice crackle to them. It's almost like mud. But he does ceramics, so let's do another spray real quick. So I'm sure there's all kinds of things you can experiment with. I've been doing this for a long time, but there's still every once in a while something I'm like, oh, well maybe that'll work. Which I'm going to show you a little bit here in a minute. Different ways I get texture and things I've been playing around with a little bit. So if you want, you could just have a bunch of spray bottles with the different dyes on them. Let's It's not working so well. There we go. Now I use all kinds of different dyes. These are all fabric dyes, although I have been experimenting recently with natural dyes. I created a rust water the other day from just, stuff, metal that's turning into rust. I've used black walnut. Fabric dyes still work really well. They give you these nice deep colors. Let's see, let's do this one. But I use all kinds of fabric dyes. Procyon is the best. It's probably the best quality I use dyes. But I use other stuff too. The only one I don't use is the kind of the RIT dyes. The liquid dyes are okay, but the other ones are a little too granular, so I don't use those. Plaster. Let's see. Let's do. Let me get my orange. Let's put a little orange on this one. This is a really nice.
Ooh, that's
orange.
bright.
Yeah, it's a very nice bright orange. I've also been playing around recently with. So we got here in Cleveland, we got the Dayglow company, and they make this really cool line of UV pigments. Very expensive, but they glow in the dark. So I've been doing some works where actually under UV light, they'll glow in the dark. I haven't done it too much just because, like I said, the dyes are really expensive. But so someday I hope to do a whole piece where when you turn the lights off and put it under a black light, it'll all glow. So I think that'll be a fun experiment in the future. All right, so you can see once again the plaster. Now here's where I use other materials, and I'm not going to do too many, but I'll just give you a brief look. So recently I've been playing around with quinoa. So you get a little quinoa, you can throw that on there. And then you throw another dye on top of it. Let's go with yellow. Now this probably won't show up that well, but the quinoa resists the dye a little bit, but it will soak up a little bit of the dye, especially when you throw a little bit more plaster on there. So this will actually, over time, soak up a little bit of the dye. And then you sprinkle a little bit more on there. So, like I said, I like to play a lot with the different textures. Can't get my plaster out so well. And then also, sometimes I dye my own sand. And sometimes just on the base here. And I don't usually do this on every piece, but I'm just giving you a really quick rundown here. So sometimes I'll put a dyed sand on there. I know a lot of people probably think you're not going to notice it that much, but then when I spray it, it kind of creates this like little patterns on there. Weird things like that. I know, it's me. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I probably wouldn't even notice that in your work, but just you build up all these different textures. Sometimes I've been playing with sawdust a little bit. But like I said, I probably wouldn't put all this on one piece. So sawdust is kind of weird because it gets a little dark. So it kind of soaks it up. Let's see how it turns. Oops. So, but just the point is like all these different things, and the idea here is to just experiment. So every little material, but you always, if you do anything like I do here, you always have to think of how's the material you're using going to soak up the dye. So it's always got to be something that soaks up the dye. If you want to resist the dye, I guess it doesn't have to, but if you want to get the color out. And the plaster, sometimes I use these plasters because the dye can be kind of dark sometimes, and this lightens it. And then if I put a lot on, let's say I just keep putting a bunch of plaster on there where it's almost white, and then there's a whole nother kind of technique where you can just use a light color. Oh, this bottle's not so good. But if I had a lot of plaster on there, then whatever color you put on there, it'll pick it up in the plaster. So if I wanted to get a little bit of blue on there, I could do that. And then there's like I said, all kinds of different things. Poppy seeds, I use that sometimes. Now poppy seeds like won't dye at all, hardly, but if you wanted to just keep like a little white.
I love the texture of the poppy seeds and the quinoa.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like it creates this dimension to it.
Right. And like I said, you just play around, you know, and you can play with colors, let it drip down if you want. Like you can just, like you can put another color up here and let it drip down towards the top. Or you can do vice versa, the top and let it drip down to the bottom. So there's all kinds of just fun things you can do. Oh, and then I've also been playing around recently with glitter.
Ooh, so, glitter.
Glitter. A little bit goes a long way though, so I don't like to get too much in there. But sometimes if I just want like a little accent color, I'll use a different colored glitter. I'm not matching them so great today, but it gives it a nice weird little, and then I usually try to let it, I try to let it run down. And so sometimes I do this because I want it to feel like there's minerals growing in it. You know, like quartz or opal.
Like you're trying to mimic that rocky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look.
So there you can see how, you can just see how like the sand has a different texture, the quinoa has a different texture, poppy seed, the glitter. So all these things just have a different, you know, the way they absorb the dye and everything. So that's how I do certain pieces. These are, I call them like either I call these accretion pieces and internodes. So I usually name things for biological.
Okay, and then in one of your full pieces will be like hundreds maybe of these
I've
put
got
together.
some big ones that are even thousands, like 3,000 to 4,000 of individual pieces put together.
Yeah, so it's all like kind of modular in a way.
Yeah, and it's very organic looking. Then I use these tubes. I'm not going to show you the full process of it because it would take too long, but it's basically the same thing. Slop on a bunch of paint. These ones, the initial process is a lot easier, but the end process takes a lot longer. So with these ones, I usually just do the oatmeal on the end. So I usually just do the end part here. Do it twice. If I don't, you can see if I just did it once, see how much of the paint would show through because you're not getting a lot of oatmeal on there. And that would be very splotchy and there wouldn't be that much for the dye to stick to. So that's why I always at least do 2, sometimes 3 coats. Okay, and for this one I'm just gonna spray it on. Once again, you can use the dyes. I've been getting a lot of like salt shaker kind of things that I just put the dye on that way. And this one, let's throw a little sand on there. Now I'm kind of sticking to similar colors, but if you wanted to put green or blue or whatever you want to do on there. So I started dyeing my own sand. It's actually very easy. It's playground sand and just fabric dyes. I was buying it at you know, like Michael's and that for a while. But it gets expensive fast and I use a lot, so I learned just to dye it myself. Okay, so this would have to dry for a day or so too, and then I would spray it, put the polyacrylic on it again, and then after that, so these pieces are a little different for me. For these ones, I usually will cut out, so this is polyfill, and once again, I do not buy polyfill. Like I said, I try to find as much material as I can, just, you know, upcycle. So this is from pillows. So here sometimes I get a pillow I don't want anymore. So this is spray painted polyfill. Then I line the inside. I won't be able to do it because this is wet. But this goes around on the inside.
Okay.
And then once again, I dye all my own yarns. Because, I don't know, I just like to dye stuff. I like the fact that I don't really know what I'm doing too well at dyeing. So you get kind of, see how it's little different colors? So I actually like that. I think it looks more natural. So if you buy a yarn, it's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
I don't like when my stuff's perfect. So, so I'll cut individual strands out, maybe 2 different kinds, and then I will actually stuff them all in. I'll glue around it and then stuff them all in. So you have these really cool growths sticking out of here. Or, so I dye my own cotton swabs too, and I'll cut the ends off of them, just the this end part here from here up, and it gets crazy too because I got to glue them all individually one at a time. So imagine, you know, like 50 of these sticking out. And then
Wow.
sometimes I'll go the extra step and I'll paint the ends, like with fabric paint, the real thick stuff that sticks up. And I've also been playing with UV paint with these too. So I've been kind of incorporating a lot of, I'm trying to do some pieces that respond differently from the natural light to UV light. So that's a whole different technique. And then there's a bunch of other techniques I use too, but like I said, I can't show you all those. But I also sometimes will do spray foam, just because I try not to use it too much, because there's no way to use that as an upcycle. But I like the fact that it gives me these nice deep grooves and holes. So the thing is, with the dye, I like to have a lot of holes in there because it'll hold the water, and then I sprinkle plaster in there, and I can get some really cool color combination as it's holding the plaster. How much time we got?
Oh, we got plenty of time. Yeah, sure.
All right, I just show you this is a whole nother type I do. Like I said, you know, this is just that spray foam for, you know, plumbing gap stuff. Once again, just experiment away. I make sculptures out of this stuff occasionally too. And then I also occasionally will use styrofoam to, like I said, that's waste from other pieces I make. So the same process here again, gotta get down in there, get that paint in there real well. So these are just other tubes I find, you know, anybody who's throwing out a tube, I will always just be like, hey, I'll take that. Christmas time's a boon for me. I get all kinds of wonderful tubes there. So I usually just do the end of these pieces too. Sprinkle it on as much as I can. So like I said, I pretty much grind with I think I use a Cuisinart to grind my own oatmeal down. It's gotta be, like I said, it can't be too, gotta be a little coarse. Not like, you have to grind it a little bit though. I mean, I play with texture sometimes. Sometimes I use almost whole kernel oatmeal or whatever you want to call it, but it doesn't soak up the dye as well. So there we go. Let's give it one more, I think. Oh. Sometimes the oatmeal doesn't like to stick to the styrofoam so well. All right, let's do this part yellow again. So yeah, you can pretty much, you know, anytime you get these bottles, you can mix whatever color you want. It's a lot of fun. I don't really, I do, like I said, I like to do things very haphazardly. I don't keep formulas, or I don't remember, I never remember a dye twice. So when I put the dye in the bottle, it's different every time. And I kind of do that on purpose, so I don't like things to be too formulaic. I like to just kind of wing it, and I think it gives quite a bit of variety in my work. You know, because nature it's not as perfect as we like make it out to be necessarily. Like in you know, you see these beautiful paintings, and it's like almost an idealized version of nature. I think nature tends to be a bit messy. I cannot open that one with my gloves. Let's see. Let's do this color. It does get messy, believe me, very fast. So yeah, this is a harvest wheat. Too much in there. It's gonna be kind of dark.
It's really cool watching the dye kind of transform when you get it wet.
No, it's fun. Sometimes it's a little too dark, but that's okay. That's why I use a lot of the plaster. It kind of brings the color back out. Yeah, and sometimes you just never know what the combination is going to be, and you can always go back and add a different dye to it. I like to get that sand to run down in it. You can see the mess, look at that. Sometimes I like the colors in my box more than I do on the pieces. It's fun to look at sometimes. There we go, plaster again. Sometimes I blow this on, but that gets to be kind of a pain in the butt. It goes everywhere. I'm just going to sprinkle it. Doesn't matter so much right now. So sometimes like I'll even go back and so if I got like a little place here that might hold quite a bit of dye and oatmeal, sometimes I'll go back and I'll throw in a little bit more oatmeal. Because let's say I want to use a different color and bring that color out. So let's say if I want to go bright, I can throw more oatmeal on top of that.
Yeah.
And then get it all to blend back together. So yeah, you can constantly play around. I usually don't like when the dye doesn't spread so well there. It gets kind of clumped together, so I'll just keep spraying until it spreads. And then if I want to get this orange back in there, I'll just spray and let it kind of run down.
Yeah.
Let it all blend together. Let's see, let's try a different glitter on here. Oh, I like this greenish yellow. That might be weird. Who knows what it's gonna look like there, but like I said, a little glitter goes a long way, so I don't want to get too crazy with it there. So yeah, and then like a piece like this, so sometimes I like these little gaps in here because that allows me to bring in whatever other color I want. So I'll go back to my cotton swabs and I'll just glue each one in at a time. So you can, it's a lot of fun. It's a really great process, but extremely time consuming. You know, there's just so many stages. You know, in this, you're already seeing it a couple of stages in because, you know, you have to get the tube, cut them down, spray the styrofoam, rip out little pieces of the styrofoam. So, you know, and then once again, you gotta spray it, let it dry. And then you just combine all the pieces together, you know, and make a little sculptural piece there. So this one, like I said, this isn't even the end stage yet. So I gotta fix that, and you can see, look, mold, bad year for mold. It's been growing on my stuff, but actually, I usually just incorporate it into a piece. I just spray it on there and say, okay, mold, you're now part of my piece. Nobody knows the difference. You get a little real nature in there. But even this piece is technically not done, so this piece still needs to be sprayed with acrylic and sprays and then polyacrylic over there. And then once again, you take thousands of them together and put them on a piece. And so now everybody knows why when I say my stuff takes forever, it does. So
Yeah.
I mean, I can knock out, I knocked out 4 pieces here real quick. Of course, that's kind of towards the end stage, but
so yeah, you all can kind of see how they would go together in a piece with them lined up.
Yeah, and then sometimes I play with the colors. You know, I haven't done too many contrasting colors so much. I like to stick, you know, close to, like, you know, if it's red, orange, yellow, or yellow, green, blue. But yeah, it's wide open. If I wanted to do a purple piece next, I could, and I don't know how it looked with these organic colors. Or, you know, sometimes you could just do one color. I know a lot of people like monochromatic pieces. I haven't done too many of those. I'm thinking about doing just a completely black piece pretty soon, just to see how it looks.
Ooh.
But as I go on, so I used to just do 1 or 2 colors on here, but as I go on, I'm starting to introduce more and more colors on each individual piece. I really like the way that looks. I think it's fun to have a bunch of colors together, but it does make it a little bit more challenging when you're trying to fit those colors all together because it just gets more and more complex, the color combinations.
Yeah.
So, you know, oh, sorry, I think I just flicked you.
That's okay.
How much time? Should I do one more, or should you take questions soon, or?
If anyone has any questions, please type them in the comments.
Well, ask questions.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, I'm going to ask some questions while you do some more. So how do you put these together on like a backing, like a wood backing?
Yeah, I do usually a wood backing, but I also sometimes create armatures, which was a really difficult learning process for me. So I make like a big, so I like my work to project out towards people. So sometimes that's where the styrofoam come in. I'll make a big like arcing styrofoam piece and then glue it on there.
Okay.
But it's been a challenge trying to figure out how to glue these pieces onto something. So when I glue them onto here, I'm fighting against gravity a lot of times. So whatever glue I use wants to come this way. Now I do sometimes lay it flat and we'll make these pieces. But then it gets difficult because when I'm working on a big piece, I can't see in so far. So I was just using glue gun glue, which is the worst glue in the world for actually binding things. But I have to hold them because when I first start my pieces, I have to hold them in place. So can you imagine doing 4,000 pieces where you have to hold a piece time to glue? So now I've been using liquid nails and glue gun because the glue gun sets in about 30 seconds, and that allowed the liquid nails it's not set. Obviously, it takes maybe 15-20 minutes or a couple hours to fully set. But yeah, it's a challenge. Gluing's been one of my hardest learning. I learned the hard way on many pieces. They sometimes get brittle or want to fall apart, but I think I got it down now. So.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit more about your inspiration, like parts of nature that you're emulating or inspired by?
Absolutely. So I go on a lot of hikes. I always have a camera with me. I'm very much inspired by the structural qualities of nature. I have too many pictures of dead tree stumps, like the decaying part of it. I love that. So when a tree starts to decay, you really start to see inside the structure of the tree, and I love that fibrous, just the way that the tree bark is, that really thick tree bark and the inside of the tree. So actually I'm trying to do a piece soon that's all like tree bark, trying to emulate tree bark stuff. So I don't try to copy nature because I think nature does it, perfectly. But I do kind of like absorb all that, and then it just kind of comes out. So I love the textural quality of nature, and like I said, structures. I like holes and muck and mud and rust, and some of my work looks kind of like there's growths on it, and fungus, geological formations. It's all very fascinating to me, and so yeah, I'm always out in nature taking pictures and trying to emulate it a little bit.
No, I love that these, like, it's very modular. Like, they're each their own little thing, but then putting them together transforms it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm always on. I would like to go, make huge sculptures. So I don't always do works that are pieces that are put together. I actually do works that are also just one, big sculpture, layered cardboard, and then I burn that. So if you ever see my work, you'll see there's like all kinds of different techniques I use. But yeah, anything that looks kind of natural and textural and stuff like that, I just absolutely love. You want to make another piece, or?
Yeah, sure. We can make another piece. Once again, if you have any questions or comments, please put them up.
Let's do another one of these guys here.
Yeah, I even just love that type of form itself.
You can see the fire does what it wants to do. I only control it a little bit. And it's kind of interesting too. Well, interesting to me anyway. That the day kind of gets imprinted on my work. So if it's a day where there's a lot of wind, I get these like really big gouges in there, and the pieces become kind of more chaotic. So that's why I love letting nature be a part of the process. Other days where it's less windy, the works are a little bit more tame, I should say, maybe. And then recently, over the last couple of years, I've been creating decay fields. So I take these cardboard pieces, I finish them, and then I leave them out in my yard, and I let them decay. And I've been taking pictures of them, and I might do a stop action where you can actually see the decay. And just this past couple months, I decided to stop the decaying process, and I'm going to actually make a piece where nature has altered them, through 2 years of decay. So I'm actually thinking about doing a series of work where the actual sculptural aspect of them is created by the decaying process itself. Because I'm just kind of fascinated with, like I said, how nature takes back its own material. So
yeah.
And I would love to try to figure out how to use water as a sculpturing tool too, but I'm not sure how to do that with cardboard, because cardboard just kind of disintegrates in water. But who knows? Maybe someday I'll figure that part out too.
Yeah. Well, like a lot of your work there's so much level of experimentation that's involved, and then just almost a level of chance that you allow things to happen.
No, I love it. I get bored if I know what I'm doing every time. Like I say, okay, I'm going to do a yellow piece, and it comes out exactly how I envision it. Oh, I get bored so fast. So it's still very it's still a mystery to me, a lot of pieces. Like, I don't know necessarily how they're going to come out, and I've been doing this for quite a few years with the dyes, and I still am learning about the color combinations because it's really kind of endless. So you just, every time you think you know what you're doing, you kind of find another color, and you're like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen like that.
Yeah, or another material,
yeah. I'm always on the hunt for Quinoa. I only started doing about 2 years ago. I have no idea. Let's just do something crazy. I don't even know.
I'm kind of loving the quinoa.
Yeah, I do too. It's just, it doesn't dye perfectly, and you kind of, every color reacts to it differently. So yeah, I'm thinking a couple of things I haven't tried yet, which are on my radar, is glass powder instead of, yeah, I think that might do some fun things, who knows, instead of the glitter. I even researched, I found out, you know how when they paint the street markers, they actually, I saw that they actually put a little bit of, there's like a glass powder in there, and that's why it shines. So I'm trying to figure out how to get my hands on that. I thought about just crushing my own bottles, which would probably be a chore. I got a friend, he does metal work for furniture, and he gave me some metal shavings. I'm going to see how those work. I'm hoping maybe they'll rust over time.
Oh, that could be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of, we were talking before this whole thing started about crystals. I've dabbled a little bit. I have not been able to really get it to work. So, I don't know though. All you have to do is start thinking about, like I said, about what will soak up the dye. And from there, your imagination can just run away with you.
Ooh.
Almost dropped the bottle.
Good thing we had
Oh, yeah.
all the stuff ready to clean.
Yeah, it does. It definitely is a mess. You can't be squeamish about a mess when you do this stuff. I don't know, let's throw a little bit more of that on there.
So what made you want to start making this type of work or this type of art in general?
You know, it just kind of happened over time by chance. So I used to do a lot of collage work with, I used to write a lot, and I had a struggle getting rid of, like a lot of writers, the editing process is grueling. And I did okay as a writer, I wasn't that great, but I would fall in love with these sentences and I couldn't let them go. So I started cutting them out, and as a way of just letting them go. So I started making collages with it. And then I started distressing those collages. So I used to use a lot of tea stains and coffee stains and iodine and all kinds of stuff like that. And then I started using dyes. And then I don't know how I started doing the sculptural work, because it was all pretty much flat, two-dimensional stuff. But one day I don't even know how, I just decided to roll cardboard and see what would happen with it. And from there I've just been expanding, kind of, using tubes and different textures. So it just, honestly, like I said, I've been experimenting for 10, 12 years now, and I never quit looking for new materials, I guess, and textural qualities. So I can't really say. It just kind of happens by chance over time. I don't know. Sometimes I'll see a spill, I'll make a mess, and I'll say, okay, that's cool. Like that. Like, I love that green, the way like if I could capture
glitter.
that, yeah, the glitter on there and the way it's sitting on the surface, but it never dries as cool as that. So I've actually tried to make pieces like that, and for some reason when it dries, it loses that beautiful luster. So I have no idea how to capture this. The larger scale I go with this technique, it loses something, and the two-dimensional work just doesn't seem to. I've been getting better at it, but it doesn't seem to do it for me for whatever reason. So I've been sticking to kind of the sculpture and three-dimensional stuff. But
Yeah. I mean, that's what keeps it exciting, that there's these challenges that you keep, and problem solving is definitely a big one.
Actually, one last, well, I don't know if this will be the last one, but so these are egg cartons too. So sometimes I put egg carton on the end of there, and the egg carton. So you got to think about, once again, dye and water. What can hold water? What can hold dye? Right. So this is almost like oh gosh, the word's escaping me. When you use plaster as a medium for paint, I can't remember all of a sudden. I should know this, and I do know it, but I can't think of it right now. Like the Sistine
fresco.
Chapel. Fresco. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. So this is my own version of that. So once again, always the oatmeal. Like I said, you can use salt too, table salt, but it just doesn't hold up. The table salt works well, the Epsom salt doesn't so much. But that gives you a whole kind of different technique too.
I could see just getting lost in the process of like making these over and over.
Oh my gosh, yes. It gets a little monotonous, but it's also a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
put on some music. Next thing you know, 3 hours have gone by. And yeah, I mean I can probably do 10 to 15 an hour, which seems like a pretty good pace. But when you got 3,000 of them to make, yeah, it takes a while. It takes many months. So you can just, you can mix a dye. Oh, it's whatever 2 colors you want, 1 color, doesn't matter. Throw that in there. Get a lot of water in there. Sometimes I'll build up texture around the edges. I didn't really do that with this piece so much. And this is where these ones need a lot more plaster though. Believe it or not, like you'd think that cardboard would be very light, but my work actually ends up being kind of heavy because if you think about it, cardboard really is, wood in a way. So each piece in itself is not very heavy, but they do add up. Plus, you got the paint and the polyacrylic. A piece of mine might use a whole gallon of paint. So yeah, it all adds up after a while. So then you just keep.
Yeah, so you're just basically filling it with.
Yeah, with plaster, and then sometimes I will, press things down into the plaster, so you can actually. I'll put gravel on there sometimes, or whatever you want, and then other ones. I'll show you here in a second. I actually will fill the egg carton up with other materials too, and just play around with that. And then sometimes it just bleeds down, or making a mess. You can just play with that, and this takes a while to dry, obviously. And if I wanted, I don't usually do this, but you can see if you wanted to put more color on top. And when that dries, I have no idea what it'll look like. So that's where, once again, the happenstance happens. Sometimes I don't like the colors, sometimes I do. And then, of course, when you put the polyacrylic on it at the end, that sometimes will change the color again. Sometimes it makes it too dark, which is a little frustrating, but...
The polyacrylic's just to kind of protect everything.
Yeah, because the oatmeal... I've had pretty good luck. It hasn't flaked off that much, and my work is pretty sturdy, but I don't want to take chances. So I always put a protectant on it, usually a couple of coats of something on it, just to be on the safe side. So once again, you just experiment. You can fill whatever you want with on there. These are just rolled up pieces of paper. This is another piece of the egg carton.
Yeah, so experimenting with like different shapes and stuff.
Absolutely, and when you get all the plaster on there, and sometimes there'll be cotton swabs in there, they all react differently to the technique. So there's really almost no end in sight to experimentation with all this stuff that I do, and that's what keeps it fresh for me. That's what keeps it fun. So as you can see too, like I said, the burning technique creates all kinds of different shapes. You can see no two are the same. These are all just rolled cardboard. And so that's another part I really like about it is I do the same thing over and over and over again, but I'm convinced that There's a theory called Emergent Properties, and to me, so if you take 2 or 3 simple shapes and 2 or 3 colors, even though you repeat those simple shapes and those simple colors, like, you know, you'll end up with these amazingly beautiful complex pieces. And it just shows you how nature can do so much with so little. So even something like a tube is everywhere in nature. A tree trunk, arteries in your body, your arm, tubes are everywhere. That's because they're the perfect vehicle for the transportation of fluids. So nature, if you start looking around nature, you will see sculpture everywhere. And that's kind of like what really gets me excited about it. And then also you can see with the spray foam, that's endless too. Like, you know, you can rip pieces out. Sometimes they'll stick together. When you rip them out, there's this really cool shape. You know, you can just, I don't even know. I haven't even really experimented that much with it. But once again, the same thing repeated over and over again. You get endless variety there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can. It's a lot of fun taking this and ending up with that, and then expanding on it even more.
Yeah. Okay. So once again, if you have any questions, even after we're done with the live stream, please comment below. Andrea just said, such fun.
Thank you. It is a blast. Messy blast.
Oh, messy blast.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to see, like, a finished piece, you can go on our website, jonahjacobsart.com. It's the same handle on Instagram, and you can see all the different types of sculptures I make using basically the same technique. Almost all of my work is, probably 99% is breaded, so you can look on there and see what you can do with it.
I love that you call it breading, like, it is.
Yeah, you could cook with that if you wanted to.
That is so funny. Okay, I'm going to switch back around and kind of turn. Oh, yes, there we go. Perfect. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'd like to thank Jonah for this amazing demo and all of you for joining. I definitely learned a lot of new things, a lot of new techniques. I'm kind of excited to maybe try some stuff out, and it's so awesome for you to kind of show us your secrets.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not all the secrets, but that's a good start.
Okay, let's see. Once again, Jonah will be showing his resident work at the Akron Soul Train Gallery from January 5th to February 12th, so next year. Keep an eye out for that. And don't miss our next show with Aaron Foster and the other show, Reshaping the Narrative. The gallery is open Wednesday through Saturday from 11 to 4. It will reopen with those shows on November 3rd with an extended hours opening on November 5th from 11 to 7. Okay, and I think that's it from here. Bye.
See ya. Bye.